This lesson is dividing 3 and 4 digits by 1 digit. There are 5 steps in any division problem. They are estimate, which I represent with an E, multiply, we represent with the times sign, subtract, compare, and bring down. You can see all of the symbols. It's helpful if you write them down every time you do them until you're well established in your division. After a while you won't need them, but sometimes at first you can get stuck or distracted. So I encourage you to write them down. I'm going to write them down as we divide. Now, we start off by saying, here's our problem, 952 divided by 4. The first thing we're going to do is estimate. We have 1 digit in our divisor, so we're only going to divide 1 digit at a time. That means we'll be dividing the 9. You can forget that the 5 and 2 are even there, and even cover them up with your finger if they get to be distracting. 9 divided by 4. What times 4 would get me close to 9? Well, that would be a 2. So I'll write a 2 in my divisor directly above the 9. It's very important that you keep the numbers in your quotient above the number that you're dividing. Now we're going to multiply. I'm going to put a little times sign here. 2 times 4 is 8. Write it directly below the 9. Now we're going to subtract. 9 minus 8 is 1. Now we're going to compare. We must compare the answer that we get when we subtract with our divisor, and it must always be smaller. If it's larger than the divisor, then you need to go back and choose a larger number for your quotient. 1 is smaller than 4, so we can go to our next step, which is bring down. I'll use a little arrow under the 5, and I'm going to bring it down. Now I have 15, and now I say 15 divided by 4, so I'm going to estimate again. What times 4 would get me close to 15 but not go over? Well, let's see. 3 times 4 is 12. 4 times 4 is 16. That one's too big. So let's back up to a 3. Put the 3 as close as you can above the 5. And now let's multiply. 3 times 4 is 12. We'll write that down. Now we're going to subtract. 5 minus 2 is 3. I write that down. Now I'm going to compare. 3 is smaller than 4. So far so good. Now I'm going to bring down. That's the 2. Bring the 2 down, and now I have 32. And back to step number 1 again. I estimate. 32 divided by 4. Well, if you know your 4 times tables, you know that that's 8. Now I multiply. 8 times 4 is 32. I'll subtract, and I get 0. Now, I'm going to check. I did all of my steps. I'm going to write them down. The way to check division is very simple. You take your quotient, 238, and you multiply it by the divisor. 4 times 8 is 32. I'll carry my 3. 4 times 3 is 12. Plus 3 is 15. I carry my 1. 4 times 2 is 8. Plus 1 is 9. And the answer that I get is the same thing as my dividend. That tells me that I've done my division correctly. Let's do another practice problem. This one's a little bit longer. We've got 4 numbers in our dividend, but we go through the steps just the same, and we'll check it just as we did the other one. So step number 1, let's estimate. We have 1 number in our divisor, so we're only going to divide 1 number in our dividend. 8 divided by 6. That would be a 1. Now let's multiply and make sure we're right. 1 times 6 is 6. Now we'll subtract. 8 minus 6 is 2. We compare. 2 is smaller than 6, so we can go on and bring down the next number. Again, make sure you're writing your numbers in your quotient directly above the number that you've just brought down. 23 divided by 6. Let's estimate. Go through your 6 times tables if you need to. I'll start with about 6 times 3. That's 18. 6 times 4 is 24. That one's too big, so back up to the 3. Now let's multiply. 3 times 6 is 18. Now we'll subtract. We can't subtract 8 from 3, but we can borrow and make that 3 into a 13. 13 minus 8 is 5. Let's compare. 5 is smaller than 6, so we're good. And let's bring down. We'll bring down the 7. Try and bring your numbers straight down. Don't go over to the side too much. And now we start again. 57 divided by 6. Let's estimate. What times 6 will get me close to 57, but not larger? Well, 9 times 6 is 54. That's pretty good. Let's try that one. Let's multiply. 9 times 6 is 54. Let's subtract. 7 minus 4 is 3. Compare. 3 is smaller than 6. Bring down again. We've got a 6 to bring down. Now we go through the steps one last time. Estimate. 36 divided by 6. If you know your times tables, and hopefully you do, you know the answer is 6. Let's multiply it out. Never leave a problem unfinished. Go ahead and finish all the way to the end. 6 times 6 is 36. Let's subtract. 36 minus 36 is 0. That one's pretty easy to compare. It's certainly smaller than 6. There is nothing left to bring down. You're done. But let's check and make sure that we've done our work correctly. Our quotient is 1,396. Our divisor is 6. We're going to multiply. 6 times 6 is 36. Carry your 3. 6 times 3 is 54. Plus 3 is 57. Carry your 5. 6 times 3 is 18. Plus 5 is 23. Carry my 2. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 2 is 8. It matches my dividend, and so we've done our work correctly. Our last division problem that we're going to practice is 8,532 divided by 6. Let's start with our estimating. 8 divided by 3. What times 3 would get me close to 8 but not bigger? That would be a 2. Now let's multiply. 2 times 3 is 6. Step 3 is subtract. 8 minus 6 is 2. We compare it. 2 is smaller than 3, so we can bring down our next number, which is the 5. Now we have 25 divided by 3. Let's estimate. Go through your 3 times table. What times 3 will get you close to 25 but not bigger? That would be an 8. 8 times 3 is 24. We multiplied. Now we're going to subtract. 25 minus 24 is 1. 1 is smaller than 3, so it compares. And now let's bring down. Bring down the 3, and we have 13. We're going to estimate again. What times 3 would get me close to 13 but not bigger? That would be a 4. So let's multiply. 4 times 3 is 12. Now we subtract. 13 minus 12 is 1. We compare. It's smaller. So let's bring down our last number, which is a 2. And that's a 12. We estimate again. What times 3 will get me 12 or closer? And that's, of course, 4. Multiply. 4 times 3 is 12. Subtract. 12 minus 12 is 0. Compare. It's smaller. And there's nothing left to bring down, so we're done. So let's check this last problem. 2,844 times 3. 3 times 4 is 12. Carry your 1. 3 times 4 is 12 again, plus 1 is 13. 3 times 8 is 24, plus 1 is 25. Carry your 2. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 2 is 8. Our answer is 8,532, and it matches our dividend. This concludes our lesson on dividing 3 and 4 digits by 1-digit divisors.